Hi, Jayanth. Welcome back. Hope you had a
Hi,
great
Leslie.
trip, yeah? Hope you had
Oh,
a
yeah.
great trip in Geneva. So I heard
It,
you had some problem. I don't think it was while traveling, but I think you got a minor AI scare, if I were to put it.
to tell you, there was a problem while traveling as well. Europe is hot. Geneva, Switzerland, it's hot. I was missing Bangalore,
Ah,
for
you told
all.
me there were no fans.
Yeah,
So that
they're not used to this kind of heat and the heat and the radiation. No fans, no ACs in the room. So, but that's a different conversation. That's a
I
conversation for
know.
another podcast or
Yeah,
offline.
because we are talking about AI and climate change.
Oh, yes, exactly. AI and climate change. But it was interesting. Yeah, I saw sun and everything. So it was a good trip. But yeah, before going to that trip, it was very interesting. So in fact, before going to Geneva, I was supposed to be in Canada, Montreal, right? I was trying to book my tickets. My Canada visa came in really late, so I had just one day to book my ticket, and I was just checking, what were the tickets available, what are the flights available, if I can still make that trip and also go to Geneva on the way back to India. And in Make My Trip, I just entered, Bangalore to Montreal for the next day. And I was just checking what were the flights and the tickets available. The tickets were exorbitant. They were, almost $5,000 one way. So
Wow.
yeah, I was just making up my mind whether I should go or not. So I left it at that. And it was at around 8:30 in the evening. In fact, it was the same day that we recorded our second episode, that night. And I left it at that. And post dinner, I was just checking something on my laptop. I just went to the YouTube in the same Chrome browser, by the way. And I was watching some video on YouTube, and before the video started, there was this ad, the video ad, right? And the video ad was that of Emirates Airlines for a flight between Bangalore to Montreal. And the entire 30-second video was of, Montreal. They were like, how you should visit Montreal for music festivals, comedy festivals, the culture shows, everything that is there to see in Montreal. And I was very surprised. I was like, how can there be an ad for something that I checked, about half an hour or 1 hour back, so
Hmm.
customized? And I kept thinking about it. It's a video ad, mind you, right?
They were tracking everything you do.
Yeah, and it turned out, and this is what I've realized. Google has Imagine, which is their video generative AI engine, text prompt to video generator, right? Which
Sure.
they yet haven't launched. They're still beta testing it. So my deduction is that whatever I have entered in Make My Trip as a flight search has been turned into a text prompt and converted into a video ad, and a personalized targeted ad has been shown to me within minutes of me looking for an for a flight or searching for a flight on Make My Trip or the India equivalent of Kayak, right? And this is how the generative AI and once maker videos, imagines become fully commercially available, this is how personalized and targeted ads can get. And it got me thinking for an hour or so, that how can they give me a video ad of specifically Bangalore to Montreal flight, right? And this is what I could come up with. And this is already getting
Yes,
engrossed
sometimes
into
it's
our
a
lives.
new, yeah, and sometimes it's a nuisance. Sometimes it's helpful. I guess most of the recommendation engines typically, tout the fact that okay, fine, they're trying to help you, they're trying to
Yeah,
assist you. But the point is, like, it's invading your privacy. Sometimes you just don't want somebody else to know your plans. And here you have somebody putting up a video in multi-second generated on the fly, and
correct.
it's pretty disconcerting, as one may put it. And
No,
also, yeah, please.
absolutely. And in my mind, in terms of ads, I mean, this best. You're a media professional, text and then print or graphic or picture based ads, and then the best responses and engagement is for video ads any which ways. I mean, that's why in the conventional media, television ads and the airtime was so costly. And now imagine if such targeted video ads can be personalized and shown to you. imagine the ad economy, ad industry, and the entire consumption based economy where that can get to. I'm just thinking, how can Amazon use it, right? How can
I'm also interested in, we probably may have to get an ad guy to here to understand how they share the revenue. Because if these
interesting,
videos are generated on the fly, how do they
right?
share the revenue? Because who knows how was it? It's there, 30-second video generated, and does it die? Does it stay? What exactly happens? Because they're customizing it on that. So I think it's pretty interesting.
The ad revenue share model would be, in my mind, and this is the industry
70-30.
analyst. This is the industry analyst in me speaking, but it will be same as the digital ad revenue, right? As your
Yeah.
web ads today. Okay, whatever your
30, 70,
conversion
70,
rates are,
30.
yeah, whatever your
Yeah.
conversion rates are. But
Conversion. Yeah.
yeah, but that's what I'm thinking. The power of generative AI is that it's getting into richer and richer media, and extremely fast, so that the relevance and the contextual nature of what's on your mind is stays there. I mean, imagine I was searching for a flight, and within half hour I get a extremely highly audiovisual rich ad. I would have almost booked that flight, right? So
Yeah,
this
that's why
is, yeah,
sometimes it's helpful. I mean, clearly, sometimes these kind of things are helpful. They may look intrusive, but yes, I mean, it's a little overwhelming that you suddenly find something, especially if you're not used to or you're not comfortable with the idea that AI is tracking you 24 by 7. In fact, actually, a lot of scams also are happening of late. I mean, you get these stray calls
right.
where nobody speaks at the other end and you're saying hello, hello. In fact, actually, you can just take a 3-second call of yours, do voice cloning, and play it back. I mean, there have been a lot of cases now of AI impersonation for plenty of other, I mean, they could steal your bank account if they know enough stuff about you. And the issue here out now is that people have become especially on Facebook and all, they'll put their parents' name, they'll put their father's name, they'll put their mother's name, everything that is there in a bank account. And then they ask,
Right.
how exactly am I exposed? Why am I exposed? Why does go? But you have voluntarily shared a lot of this kind of information either with the visa authorities when you're traveling up and down. Like for Geneva, I'm sure they have all the information at their
Right.
fingertips. Without
Right.
without which you wouldn't have got your it's a Schengen visa, right?
It's
So
a Shenzhen
you
visa, yes.
yeah, so you wouldn't have got that. If I'm traveling to the US knows everything about me. If I'm
Yeah.
traveling to Canada, Canada knows, or any country for that matter. Why India knows everything about every other traveler. So and then of course Facebook knows practically everything because we are sharing all the images out there. Either we are doing it on Instagram, either we are doing it on Facebook. And worse still, what I find that okay, mother's name is sacrosanct in banking accounts, especially in
Correct.
India. And this is,
True.
we sort of very, without even giving it a thought, we're sharing it all over the place. I think people should be probably a little wary about these things, but I guess it's part and parcel of the entire thing.
Yeah, it's very interesting you bring up that point, because I just had a lunch meeting, an extended lunch meeting with a very good friend of mine who's a cybersecurity expert. He's been in the space of cybersecurity and identity and access management and data security for the last 25 years, right? So we were discussing some of these things. He says, at least in the consumer space, it's very difficult to secure this data and the data breaches. But in the enterprise space, apparently the security is gotten to the next level, where this guy specializes in identity and access management. They are also using AI. They are literally using AI to see which employee is logging in from which IP, and accessing which apps and for how long, whether he has access to it or not, and for what purposes. So that kind of behavior and any abnormalities or flags are being raised. So they are using AI and ML in cybersecurity to look for abnormalities. But this is happening at the enterprise level. But in the consumer space, some of these data that we so freely share, and with some of these engines becoming so powerful, the security infrastructure is still not in place in the consumer space to to prevent some of these mishaps or breaches.
Yeah, but even in the enterprise space, for that matter of fact, even the point is that even the hackers are using AI and ML. I mean, I'm talking of the
Correct.
real top end hackers. I'm not talking of the run of the mill kind of, the Nigerian scammers, etc. No, but I'm talking of those who are like, in those cubby holes of Russia or China, or, those usual suspects that we have. Because I was speaking to a lot of these global cyber security experts, and they've been, they acknowledge the fact that hackers will probably be one step ahead of anything, regardless of what you do, because just as you have access to the tool now, everything is open source also.
True.
Like
Yes.
LLMs are open source. They could also use a zero-shot learning. They could use anything for that matter of fact. So all the tools that are available with enterprise-grade security experts are available with hackers. But of course, that's a subject for another episode altogether. Now, since you made that distinction between the consumer and the enterprise, I think you're already aware of what's happened in the enterprise space. ChatGPT finally has come out with an enterprise version.
Right.
But
That
before
was
that,
a logical extension. It was expected anyways. Yeah. I mean, the
absolutely,
moment
they
it
were
became a
all.
Microsoft company, yes, we knew where it was going. Yeah.
They were talking about chat GPT for business. Now finally, anyway, they have come out with it. But before I speak about chat GPT for enterprises, I also want to get your quick thoughts on Meta's seamless M40. Now that's basically the massive multilingual multimodal machine translation.
Yes.
This is the first multimodal model which represents I mean, they say it's a very significant breakthrough in speech to speech and speech to text translation and transcription. Now, of course, this is again a kind of an open source, because I think it's a Creative Commons license.
License.
Yeah, yeah,
CC
and it's
license.
supposed
Yes.
and it's. I mean, there are distinctions even in the Creative Commons. Some of them are not totally open source. Some of
Yes.
them, so I won't get into that. That's too technical for
Open
now.
source is a whole episode or
Yeah.
three unto itself easily.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what I like was that it's been public. It's in a public domain. It supports nearly 100 languages for input, speech plus text, 100 languages for text output, and 35 languages, which includes English, for speech output. So this was just, I mean, of course, the Indian Institute of Science is also doing a lot of stuff. Google in India is also doing a lot of stuff in Indian languages. We know the Nandan Nilekani's AI for Bharat and all these, and you're very well versed with what's happening in that. But I just thought, our listeners should know that Meta has also come up with this. It's always, I think these, what I find is a strange coincidence. Like suddenly Google will come out. I think Google has announced something on Gemini. Meta will announce something on multimodal. And I think they wait for each other, either one of them.
You have to understand that all these companies are based in California and within a few kilometers of each other. And most of the data scientists and the engineers, work for most of these companies, and they're poached from one of these companies any which ways, between Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Alphabet, with Google.
It's not only that, Jayant. I mean, they're on each other's Twitter's timeline, so they can see if the moment Jan LeCun makes an announcement.
Jeffrey Hinton has to.
Jeffrey Hinton has to do it. Shane Legg from DeepMind will do something else. So and they have their. You can see those debates. They'll keep on replying to each other. They'll keep on. It's a very healthy debate and very instructive and insightful kind of conversation to follow. Now on ChatGPT, please.
Even before you get there, I wanted to make a point on Meta's announcement on multimodal LLM.
Yeah, the seamless M40.
The seamless M40. Multimodal was coming any which ways. We knew that with GPT-4, but multilingual is interesting because there are two ways to look at it, right? There are some language companies in different parts of the world, which specialize in languages and dialects and language translation, and there are machine translation engines. Even in India, there are companies like Revry and Nani and yellow.ai, which do machine-based Indian languages localization and translation. Okay, and some of these companies have a leverage because they understand languages better, dialects better, right? But some of the big tech companies, they have knowledge graphs and they have intent interfaces. Okay, and now they are catching up on the language part. So it's a race between whether these language companies can build knowledge interfaces or intent interfaces first, or these big tech companies who actually are in the business of core business of building intent interfaces and knowledge interfaces can adapt to languages. Looks like, with Facebook's seamless M40, this is the first first stroke of the big tech companies who have intent interfaces at the core are now building languages also. So with a combination of these two, the entire localization of languages and machine translation is very soon going to be going to be in the realm of the big tech companies as well. So this is a shift in the machine translation industry and the languages industry and localization industry also, that we should look at. Yeah.
Jayant, you'll also recall, I've had this conversation earlier also on a couple of occasions with Bharat Turovsky.
Yeah.
Bharat
Ex-Google
Turovsky,
Translate.
for the listeners, he's with Google and he's one of the chiefs of, as far as languages is concerned, he's one of the major researchers out there. Now, what Bharat had told me, I remember earlier also, that basically the whole ability of languages learning from another language, a single language, you don't need to know. Like for instance, if you're trying to translate Arabic, you could translate it with the knowledge that you have of, say, another language, whether it's Yiddish or whether it's Jewish or whatever language you're speaking. So it's you're learning from each language, and that cross pollination happens. And he said that would happen with Indian languages also, which we are seeing at this point in time. Many of these companies are actually doing exactly that. And of course, we'll be calling some language experts also out here who can explain exactly what it means, because we are talking from a 360-degree kind of stuff, talking about how the zero shot or few shot learnings are happening, in context learnings are happening, etc. But I found that very interesting that finally that's happening. And as far as your observation on startups versus thing, yes, I have had chats with Nyani especially,
Right.
and asked him,
Ganesh.
So what's the relevance, of your company? After some point in time, these guys will just chew you alive, kind of. But it's not true. I think there's some complementarity being built, and then also I get the feeling sometimes that they would, I think many other companies may want to get, the smaller companies may want to reach out to these companies. There'll always be those larger kind of LLMs which will basically have to be fine-tuned and then customized and then got on to do, so that you can make sense of it in your own organizations. Which brings me to the whole question, to the whole issue on the topic that we wanted to deal today with, ChatGPT for enterprises.
Right.
So now I'll just put forward a few points for the listeners, and then I would love your thoughts on what you feel, where this is going to take, or how, what are the differentiators, because obviously other people are also in this space. And but so here are some of the highlights. So I think basically, again, ChatGPT or OpenAI is using ChatGPT for what it says: clearer communication, accelerating coding tasks, exploring answers rapidly for complex business questions, assisting with creative work, etc., etc. Now the features are like unlimited access to GPT-4, which is no usage caps. I thought that was quite interesting. It is the higher speed performance for GPT-4, up to 2x, 2 times faster. Then there's unlimited access to advanced data and analysis, which was formerly known as code interpreter, if you remember.
Yes.
The context windows are almost like 4 times longer inputs now. It's like 32K. So that because you can process far more data at one go. That is the thing. And even for follow-ups, for files, for follow-ups, etc. There are shareable chat templates for any company to collaborate and build, if they want to build common workflows. And there are free credits to use the APIs if anyone who wants to extend, OpenAI into a fully customized solution for the company. Now, The interesting part out here, if you remember, I had spoken to a lot of companies in India about using generative AI and the OpenAI apps. At that point in time, we didn't have ChatGPT for enterprises, but of course, the APIs were there in the open
Right.
domain, so people were anyway customizing it and using it. Now, what I observe, and these are like big companies which I've quoted over there in my article also about Tech Mahindra. I think Tech Mahindra is at the forefront of many of these things. It's doing a lot of work in this space. But the interesting part is this came on the back of what happened at Samsung, where they banned ChatGPT.
Yes. Yes.
So, there was that initial scare around it. My question to you is, in your talks with all the enterprises and with this opening up of ChatGPT for enterprises, what do you believe at this point in time will happen in the next couple of months? Because my understanding is basically that you still have to do a lot of fine tuning on the
Yes.
LLMs. It's not something that you can take an LLM and put it out there, which I think this misconception has to be cleared. And many people have been talking about it. Enterprises themselves keep on insisting that, hello, it's, there's a lot of legacy. Now, you come with a telco background, so you know the kind of legacy equipment that everybody has out here. A lot of integration issues. So if you can just spell that out, and that will be interesting.
Yeah. So what I see happening, and this is based on my conversations with some of the senior professionals in some of the companies and different across industries as well, is that the within enterprises, the ChatGPT and ChatGPT based applications and tools and solutions acceptance is happening. I mean, enterprises and the decision makers in enterprises are saying that this is the new reality that we have to live with. And some of the enterprises are also already adopting and implemented some of these generative AI based tools. For example, I was just speaking to someone senior who heads the support for an American telecom company. It's a global company. Their support tickets, right? For example, they use something called as a text expander, wherein you just give the ticket number and it extracts all the key data from that trouble ticket, okay, and prepares a good automated email response, okay, to be sent back, and keeping the customer or the client engaged and updated on the resolution of the issue. Okay, now the support engineer doesn't have to get in and do that. So for some of these use cases, especially in the support, and this I'm talking about enterprise support, mind you, this I'm talking about very core IT, deep IT infrastructure support. This is not your regular consumer support or customer care. So some of these tools are already being used, and now ChatGPT coming up with a whole suite of features and functionalities for enterprise is only going to make a whole, open up a whole space for enterprise apps, okay, and solutions development to come in place. I mean, and everybody is getting ready for it. Enterprises are accepting that, generative AI and ChatGPT and even multimodal generative AI based solutions is something that they have to live with. On the support side, they're looking at text based ChatGPT based solutions. On the marketing and the ad side, they're looking at Maker Video and Imagine based solutions, or Midjourney and DALL-E 2 based solutions. But for specific teams and departments and use cases and applications, enterprises are opening up. Now, what happens is GPT-4, Claude, and all these LLM engines right now are very generic. Okay, what we are also seeing are the evolution of vertical based LLMs. Vertical based LLMs, okay, healthcare, education, infrastructure, okay, all these industries, the vertical based LLMs are coming, and if they're only few months away, or if not year, I'm definitely not years, they're only a few months away.
Yeah.
And once these are in place, okay, in the generative AI based enterprise solution based on these specific LLMs, okay, are going to be evolved. I mean, generic LLMs with generative AI, large language models, then verticalized LLMs, then enterprise specific LLMs. That's anyway the logical extension. The second to third one is difficult. Okay, it's not as easy, but they're going to get there. So enterprises are open to live with generative AI as the new paradigm. They're accepting it. They are having discussions and decisions as to how to how to implement it. We are entering, for most of the companies, especially global companies, we are entering the last quarter, mind you, and this is the quarter where they finalize the budgets for the next year. In fact, we know for a fact that a lot of companies are looking at allocating budgets for generative AI based solutions for the starting with next year and for the next few years.
So what are the kind of budgets that you're seeing them allocate? I mean, in the sense, like, would be upwards of millions of dollars, would be, kind of, it would be interesting to know.
No, depends on the size of the company, right? I mean, yeah, obviously,
Yeah,
the app providers and the startup guys would love to know what the budgets that their potential clients have. But no, it depends on the size of the company. Global multinational companies do know that they have to invest, they have to allocate a few millions of dollars, okay? Because the use cases for global companies are also going to be vast, from support to marketing, and most importantly, adopting. Some of these big companies might want to have their own LLMs, like, Bloomberg has its own LLM internally. Okay, some of the media houses would like to have their own LLMs. So,
but Jayanth, once again, because I think this is an important distinction, because when we are talking about generic LLMs, then we are talking about vertical LLMs. They people might be sort of misled into thinking that, okay, if I have a vertical LLM, my problem is solved. Vertical LLMs, implementing vertical LLMs is easier said than done, because of the issues will be the same. So that I don't want to get the impression that, okay, fine, I have a vertical LLM. Wow. So now my problem is been solved. No, it's not.
No, it's definitely not. I mean, it again depends on the issues of hallucination, the issues of loops of data, of repetitions of data is going to continue. It only depends on the fine tuning of the algorithm, and like you rightly said, the continual fine tuning of the algorithm. Okay. And it also depends on data, what data is the right and how much synthetic data that they're using. If you look at Bloomberg, it's a 710 billion parameter LLM that they've created, of which 340 billion billion parameters are their own actual raw data, and 360 billion, 360 or 370 billion is about synthetic data. Okay. So they're also able to create synthetic data because they had their own actual raw data in place. Okay. But that's a huge model. I mean, nowadays we know that there are generative AI algorithms running on 13 billion. There are 7 billion also, but 13 billion is where a decent accuracy has been reached. Okay, 13 billion as well. But yes, to your point, completely understand, and it is right that vertical LLMs do not remove the issues of generative AI. Okay. The repetition and the hallucination might happen in their own domain, but they would still happen.
Yeah, and they make life easier. I mean,
and that is why the first few applications in enterprises that will be implemented will be in low risk, low touch point areas of support and backend support, instead of high risk and front end applications and use cases. Okay, so that is that is what is expected. And some of you asked for about budget allocations. Okay, one of the budget allocation line items that I'm seeing some of the enterprises are doing is also for consulting and advisory, how best to implement generative AI for their companies. Remember, 5-6 years back, 2015, 2016, companies had digital transformation budgets, right? They did not know how to all these digital technologies that are evolving, from telecom to internet to mobile to advanced analytics and AI ML in the early stages back then, and even IoT in the early stages back then. How can they use any of these technologies, and how can they use them for their purpose or for their company's purpose? Okay, So they all had digital transformation budgets, of which a certain section was allocated, factored for consulting and advisory as well. So even now, generative AI is where, as far as the enterprises are concerned, digital transformation was back in 2015 and 16. So they, for the next year or two, there's a significant portion of the budget of generative AI that's being allocated for consulting and advisory as well. How to understand how
makes sense.
the models are evolving, technologies are evolving, and how can they be used.
Yeah, but I think the interesting part here is like when we are talking about generative AI from a generic point of view, and then the vertical LLM, I would always like to give the analogy of till first to 10th standard, at least in India, first to 10th standard, you learn all the subjects.
Right.
And then when you go to 12th standard, then you sort of fine tune it and you sort of narrow down the choices. Then when you reach graduation, you again narrow down the choices. That's a kind of vertical. And then when you do post graduation, do a PhD, then you start hardcore specialization. So I mean,
that's a good analogy. Actually, that's a very good analogy for someone to draw parallels and understand. Yes.
Yeah. And now the interesting part is, of course, we could speak about ChatGPT for enterprises till the cows come home. The interesting part is that I was intrigued by what Paytm put out in its annual report. It says that, okay, fine, it's a 492-page annual report. And it talks about so Paytm is a good company, and I think it has done it's been at the forefront of creating or strengthening India's financial ecosystem, the digital payments ecosystem. So I must hand it over to Vijay Shekhar Sharma for doing all that. And I think they're doing a lot of work as far as AI-based stuff is concerned, because anyway, the BFSI sector and the financial sector, digital payment sector, lends itself very easily to all to seeking patterns, to using machine learning, etc.
Exactly.
So when in his annual report he said that he's trying to build an India scale AI stack, I said, wow. I said, this is great. It's a very logical kind of conclusion. But really what caught my attention was where he mentioned it's actually a one line, that entire 492 page. But I think it was out of place over there when he started speaking about that we have the AI stack is being sort of created with an eye on building an AGI software stack. Now, that I felt, was clearly AGI washing. For instance, I mean, see, either you have, there are two assumptions that I have to make here. One is that if I go by the commonly accepted a definition of AGI, which would mean that artificial general intelligence is something where AI becomes conscious of itself, starts reasoning, thinking like a human being, and then it brings into mind all the pictures that we have, whether it's a Terminator, whether it's a Skynet, whether it's that film called Her, where the software starts
or
becoming
what you will keeps talking about these days. You will
or what you will do. Yeah. Now, I don't understand why it has to bring in the picture of AGI. So is Paytm really working on something that we don't know, and saying that he wants to export that stack out of India? I feel we can. At this juncture where people are doing such good work with AI, I think they can do without resorting to all these kind of work, because these are distractions, I think. I know that not many people would have understood the difference, but I'm sure that Paytm understands the difference between AI and AGI. So to draw comparisons and draw.
I would really like to understand what their definition of AGI is, number one. Okay.
Excellent.
I mean, because as an industry analyst, giving them the benefit of doubt, there are a couple of advantages that I see that Paytm has. In fact, Paytm.
But Jayanth, a minute. I reached out to them with specific questions, and they assured me that they'll get back to me with the answer. They did not get back till the time I had written about it. So I gave them a fair chance of almost like 4 or 5 days to this point.
Okay.
So in all fairness, I reached out because I exactly asked them. I said, kindly define what you mean by AGI,
Fair enough. No, I mean, in today's day and age, considering where the technology is, considering the resources that the technology needs to do what it does. Mind you, the generative AI queries are anywhere between 70 to to 70 times costlier than normal search queries. Okay.
Yes.
What search queries Google costs. Okay. So in terms of, resource and infrastructure, usage, generative AI engines and where they are today, they are almost performing at the peak of where the infrastructure exists, right? From here, talking about creating an AGI stack, and if it's the true sense of the word and definition of AGI, it sounds far-fetched, honestly. Okay, but to give Paytm the benefit of doubt or advantage, Paytm was the first or one of the first companies to set up a AI team in Canada very early, back in 2014-15, and coming out of University of Toronto, where Professor Jeffrey Hinton and all were there. So they had a good AI team right in the beginning, right when they raised the early SoftBank funding, actually, right? That and then, if you look at it, Paytm in India garners, financial transaction data in every nook and corner in terms of breadth and depth. Okay, so that way they might be, able to, they might be sitting on anonymized, aggregated, financial transaction data, which will give them indications and signals, right, of general life in different nooks and corners of India, and there can be some intelligence that can be built over that. But
I'm okay with that.
Exactly.
We are giving the devil its due. We are saying, okay, fine. Yeah, clearly, Paytm is at the forefront of advanced analytics. Clearly, it's at the forefront of AI. But see, also my point is, there's a certain skill set required for AGI. If you go towards this, even generative AI, for that matter of fact, and AGI, these are guys with deep learning neural network info.
Yes.
So this is just not machine learning. This is also pretty advanced from that point. Of course, Paytm Labs is there. They will be doing a lot of cutting edge, but look at the R&D budgets of Paytm, and look at the R&D budgets of Google or Microsoft or Anthropic or OpenAI. Paytm is a listed company, so all its numbers are there in the public domain. I was looking at it, has got about $1.4 billion in cash, but also its employee costs are run into 3,000-4,000 crores. Its technology budgets run into, and it's not
which
just
is $500 million unto itself. Yeah.
Exactly. So there are other recurring costs, working capital
costs. Yeah.
So it just looks a little. I'm just saying, AGI for most companies, AGI is probably talking about AGI is a little premature at this point in time.
My experience, Leslie, is if there's anything mentioned in a 498-page report as just a one line, I normally overlook it. Okay, because any company report, if they're serious about it, they allocate a chapter or two on it and go deep on it.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, but so my point is, when doing it for the listed company,
exactly,
that's I wouldn't want it. It had Paytm just been the startup of the unicorn, I would have let it pass.
Or a unicorn, I like that, startup or a unicorn.
I mean, see, because unicorns have been mouthing a lot of platitudes of late, and we have seen cases. I don't want to take any names out here, but we all know they have had to bite the dust after that, because I remember I've had so many conversations with unicorns over a period of time, and it's not only me, that so many fine reporters who have red flagged this, so many analysts have red flagged it, and the unicorn founders have time and again. There are some brilliant ones who have been very consistent, who have shown revenue profitability and have taken the country many notches ahead. I'm saying, I'm not talking of that they should be failing or they should be I think for every 10 startups, I think 7 anyway fail. Those are like accepted norms that VCs and angels will tell you that. But having said that, I'm saying that consistency shows, like if you start putting in words here and there, and especially when this is a listed company, because there are minority shareholders also. There are also small shareholders who get excited. Okay, should I be investing in this company?
Yeah.
Because The thing that triggered it off was actually somebody asked me, "Arey, yaar, Paytm is working on AGI,
AG.
and what are your thoughts on that?" I said, "See, I don't invest in stocks because I'm not allowed to, first of all, as a media person, and I don't advise on stocks, but I can only tell you about AGI."
Correct.
So that was my trigger. It's just
So yeah, if they mention it only as a one line and there's no further description of it, and you've reached out to them and they were not able to get back to you within 4 or 5 days, then I don't think
no,
it
no, that's what I'm
needs to be
saying.
taken seriously.
I'm just saying that companies, especially listed companies, should be cautious before they do that stuff, because it's
Totally.
not that we do not want Indian companies to
Of
do it. We
course.
want Indian companies. I
Of
think it's
course.
very important that we create a kind of an India GPT, which I think Tech Mahindra and all are working on LLMs and all.
Yes.
Towards an Indian. The Indian Institute of Science is doing some brilliant work.
Yes.
Uh, and there are a lot of these companies who are doing a lot of, there's a lot of stellar work being done in India, groundbreaking work, I would say. And we want more of this stuff, along with the Neeraj Chopras, and along with, it's just not a
The
javelin throw. We
Chandrayaan
also,
3s and Chandrayaan
yes,
3s and
and
ISROs. Of course.
no,
Of course.
ISRO has put us on the moon. It's going to the sun.
Totally.
So
Yes.
we
Yes.
want, we surely want somebody, putting us on the AI map. We are already there. It's not that in
Correct.
the application
Correct.
space. We'd love it to have it on the R&D
So
space, but I'm saying
I
it's,
will tell you this, and this is something that I learned from my Geneva trip for the last 2 weeks. What I hear, and I was speaking with some very senior people, who consult for UN, and I was having lunches and dinners with people who either consult or work with CERN or UN or in the Geneva area. And these guys are global people. All their careers, they've worked all around the world. What I hear is in US and in the Valley especially, if there are resumes for AI specialists, AI engineers, data scientists, and if it's an Indian, there's an Indian name, the resume goes on top of the pile apparently. So AI rising is happening, only that we don't know. Okay, and but it's still a subtle under the surface thing. But I agree, man. I mean, I have been saying for the longest of time, the next Steve Jobs, the next Elon Musk, or the next Jack Ma has to be an Indian. Okay, I'm a very, very, very strong advocate and believer of that. Okay, so I'd be really happy to see an Indian company building an AGI stack. Okay,
yeah. I mean, if Indians can become the CEOs of multinational companies, I'm
exactly.
sure we will be seeing a lot more on the AI part. On this good and encouraging note, I know we wanted to speak about AI regulations, but that we'll leave it for the next
Next
episode.
episode.
Thanks, Jayanth.
Thanks, Leslie. It was fun as always.